My name is Bond. James Bond. Since we first met, you've joined me on 9 of my missions. My latest, and if I'm not careful, my last assignment, will take me to new heights of adventure. New depths of danger. And new areas of excitement.
I have a message for you.
I think you just a little bit. I will come to grips with my most formidable adversaries, be up against the most fascinating women, and handle some of the most fantastic equipment you've ever seen. It won't be easy. But every job has its rewards. In this case, it's the spy who loved me.
After the release of The Man with the Golden Gun, the Bond film franchise found itself in an awkward position. Many key members involved in the series to this point began to depart and move on to other ventures. Producer Harry Saltzman in particular had found himself in hot water with bank loans and was forced to sell his shares in the franchise, leaving Albert Cubby Broccoli to be the sole guiding force in the production of future films. The lukewarm reception to The Man with the Golden Gun also put pressure on the filmmakers and Broccoli to create the best film they could to make up for their previous mistakes. On top of all this, production would be mired by various difficulties before and during filming of its scenes. With all of these things going on, one would be safe to assume that the film was cursed and doomed to failure, bringing an end to the Bond film franchise once and for all. Fortunately, the end result of 1977's The Spy Who Loved Me is not a failure. In fact, it's one of the greatest triumphs in the history of the franchise.
It's the biggest. It's the best. It's Bond.
Yeah, we got the feeling somebody doesn't like you.
And beyond. The Spy Who Loved Me. It takes James Bond to new heights of excitement and new depths of danger. The Spy Who Loved Me. Rated PG.
The Spy Who Loved Me is one of those rare films that has everything stacked against it from the beginning and yet comes out stronger on the other side than it did coming in. It certainly helps that it has a mix of fresh and old faces to bring their ideas together. Lewis Gilbert, who previously directed You Only Live Twice, was recruited once again to direct the upcoming film and worked in close cooperation with famed production designer Ken Adam. Among the new talent included screenwriter Christopher Wood replacing Tom Mankiewicz, and composer Marvin Hamlish filling in for John Barry, who is absent from this film for tax reasons. Although the film's title is taken from a Fleming novel, the story itself is completely original due to a legal order from Ian Fleming's estate, which resulted in Fleming's name being used above Bond's name in the opening credits, as opposed to the title in previous entries. Compounding this further was a legal injunction filed by Thunderball producer Kevin McClory, who threatened to sue Eon Productions for attempting to use Ernst Blofeld and Spectre again in the upcoming film's story. It's amazing how, despite all of these complications and problems that surfaced during production, The Spy Who Loved Me would come to be regarded as one of the best films in the franchise and the finest performance of Roger Moore's career.
I'm certain that two such perceptive talents will enjoy working together in Sardinia, and that it will help to make Anglo-Soviet cooperation a reality.
The film begins, appropriately enough, with a Cold War-flavored opening not dissimilar from You Only Live Twice. A pair of nuclear submarines are captured by a supertanker ship, one of them British and the other Soviet. This incident puts the world powers on edge, which forces MI6 to interrupt James Bond in the middle of applying his weapons of mass seduction. At the same time, we see a Soviet woman doing the same thing while her lover leaves her to take part in his own mission. The rest of the scene is a big downhill ski chase, complete with crazy aerials and creative camera angles by veteran skier Willy Bogner, as well as the sexiest disco version of a Bond theme you've ever heard. The cherry on top of the sundae of this scene is when Bond jumps off the cliff to escape the goons hot on his trail. The stunt was performed by Rick Sylvester and cost $500,000 to perform, making it the most expensive stunt ever filmed at the time it was made. Every one of those dollars was put to good use. When I saw this as a kid, I lost my mind. Seriously, you almost forget to breathe in this scene. The dead mountain silence is the perfect touch to keep audiences tense and waiting to see if Bond will make it to safety, which he does, in a way only Bond can do best. Apparently when this moment played in the premiere, the theater erupted in applause. It certainly gets a thumbs up for the sheer creativity of it all, and another because it also happened to be filmed in Canada. Shout out to Mount Asgard. The whole thing is wrapped up nicely with the film's theme, Nobody Does It Better, performed by Carly Simon. This might be an unpopular opinion due to it being a ballad, but this is one of my top 5 favorite themes in the whole series. It's the first Bond theme I can think of where the piano takes precedence over all other instruments, and this plays into the emotion and romanticism of the title. The lyrics written by Carol Bayer Sager are so well connected to the plot, it's almost like you're being read the script in musical form, and I have to say, Carly Simon's beautiful performance still makes me emotional when I listen to it. It reminds me of a simpler time when I used to watch the Bond films on VHS as a kid, and I would rewind the tapes over and over again just so I could re-experience the magic of this series. In doing so, I became even more attached to the franchise. To me, this song doesn't just represent a spy falling in love with another spy, but also symbolizes us, the fans, who fell in love with this wonderful character in his cinematic universe. We don't know how the filmmakers do all the things they do, or why even the worst of the films in the series somehow end up being fun in their own unique way, but one thing is for certain, this song is more than a theme. To me, it's a love letter to the magic of James Bond. In nearly 60 years since the first film, truly, nobody does it better.
So there was a lot of legal background, a lot of legal conflict to get this film off the ground. And what's amazing is that it's probably the best of the Roger Moore films, and one of the best films that we made at the time. And maybe it was the conflict itself that caused everyone to feel we have to make this picture and it has to be good.
Anyway, getting back to the film, Bond is tasked with going to Egypt to investigate the whereabouts of a microfilm containing the blueprints of a submarine tracking system, which was used in the capture of the submarines from earlier. His journey to obtaining the microfilm leads him to crossing paths with a Russian agent and the main Bond girl of the film, Anya Amasova, played by Barbara Bach. She goes by the codename Agent XXX and reports to General Gogol, who would become a recurring character throughout the next few films in the series. She is after the same microfilm that Bond wants, which initially creates tension between the two agents as they try to fulfill their duties and serve their countries. Of all of Roger Moore's Bond films, Anya is far and away the best Bond girl of them all, largely because of how strong of a character she is in comparison to other Bond girls, at least in Moore's universe. Most of the previous Bond girls to this point, with the exception of Tracy in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, were little more than pieces of eye candy. Some of them did have interesting backstories and unique personalities, but for the most part they came and went while Bond continued in his duties and never lingered around much as far as action scenes were concerned. But with Anya, not only is she more directly involved with the film's story, but she's a legitimate counterpart to Bond. There's more than a few scenes where Anya outsmarts him while they're forced to cooperate with each other later on in the film, and even has her own fair share of witticisms to throw back at Bond.
Oh, by the way, thanks for deserting me back there.
Every woman for herself, remember?
Still, you did save my life.
We all make mistakes, Mr. Bond.
What I like most about Anya, however, is the relationship that she and Bond share and develop with each other over the course of the film's events. Right at the beginning, they're almost at each other's throats due to their respective countries wanting the same microfilm. Rare is the opportunity when a villain manages to get under Bond's skin, but even more rare is when a Bond girl does it.
Commander James Bond, recruited to the British Secret Service from the Royal Navy, licensed to kill, and has done so on numerous occasions. Many lady friends, but married only once. Wife killed.
All right, you've made your point.
You're sensitive, Mr. Bond.
About certain things, yes.
That just blew my mind when I first realized this. It's like now we're bringing continuity into it? It makes you wonder just what other kinds of dirt Anya has on Bond. Over the course of the film, the relationship grows even further. They go from being enemies to reluctant allies before becoming friendlier with each other and eventually starting an inevitable romance. Even though it all happens quickly, it still feels natural, and like any relationship, there's conflict, like when Anya discovers Bond killed her lover during the opening scene of the film. Even though she resists Bond's advances and he himself is apprehensive to working with her, they both change as characters to better suit each other, without compromising who they are as characters. Anya consistently demonstrates a quiet confidence and sense of resolve throughout the film, while Moore's Bond maintains the general sense of charm and aloofness he's always been known for. Despite their differences, the story brings them together, and the natural chemistry between the two actors adds icing on the cake.
The mission is over, Commander.
The lead villain of the film is Karl Stromberg, performed by Kurt Jurgens. He's a megalomaniacal industrialist who plots a course of action to start World War III by launching nuclear warheads at New York and Moscow using the nuclear subs that were captured at the beginning of the film. After this, he plans to create a new civilization under the ocean to begin a new era for humanity free of pollution and conflict. I admit the idea is interesting, but I'm not completely sold on it. Why would he plan to destroy the world and then proceed to build a new society? Didn't he begin to think that maybe destroying some of the world's most powerful economies isn't a good idea if you want to make your own version of Rapture? Oh well, at least Kurt does a good job in the role, even though he looks like he's wearing pajamas in every scene he's in. He's definitely no Scaramanga in that sense, but he still manages to portray a calm and collected villain with a slight touch of madness.
Today's civilization as we know it is corrupt and decadent. Inevitably, it will destroy itself. I'm merely accelerating the process.
That does not justify mass murder.
For that, Major, I will accept the judgment of posterity.
His henchman, on the other hand, is far more interesting. Richard Kiel plays Jaws, a towering 7-foot-tall behemoth with a set of metal teeth that he uses to kill all of his victims. Jaws is probably the most famous henchman in the entire film series, a lot of it owing to his physical stature and set of chompers, but he also stands out for all the encounters he has with Bond. Most henchmen in the series had one big fight with Bond before they ended up meeting their maker, after which he proceeded to take on the main villain. In this film, I can think of at least 4 different scenes where Bond and Jaws come to blows with each other, and each encounter is more unique than the last. The film does a great job at showing the audience how menacing Jaws really is. He just rips and tears at everything in his way, though not always to his benefit. This leads to my favorite thing about Jaws. He's the best comedy relief in the whole film, which is ironic considering he's supposed to be intimidating. Every time his attempt to kill Bond is foiled in some way, shape, or form, he goes through a crazy degree of physical punishment, only for him to get up, dust himself off, and continue about his business. Richard Kiel's performance in this regard is fantastic. Who needs dialogue when you've got some of the most hilarious facial expressions in all of cinema? My favorite part is when Bond and Jaws duke it out at the end of the film. There's no dialogue or music at all, just Moore hamming it up and playing a dirty trick on Jaws. It's like a scene straight out of a silent film.
How does that grab you?
Well, almost. Where do I even start with the things I love about this film? Of course, I already went in depth about the relationship between Bond and Anya and how it evolves over time. Well, it is an action film, so let's talk about the action then. After the lack of bombastic, over-the-top, larger-than-life set pieces in The Man with the Golden Gun, it's nice to finally see things blowing up again, and man, did they ever make up for it this time around. The scene near the end where Bond and his merry men storm the supertanker is the biggest highlight of all. There's so many grenade explosions, people dying in exaggerated ways, and so much fire blazing everywhere, it's sensory overload. It's a lot like You Only Live Twice, which is fitting considering who's sitting behind the director's chair this time around. The crew had to create a brand new stage at their film studio just to film this scene alone, which is known as the 007 stage and continues to be used today. The special effects in particular are so lifelike it still baffles me today. I always wondered how they were able to pull off so much destruction. This was the first time where I started to notice the genius of Derek Mettings, an effects technician who was able to create miniature versions of buildings and real-life military ships. It's hard to believe that all this mayhem was conducted using models and miniature replicas, and it's a testament to how much can be accomplished without the use of CGI. Even without models, the action still doesn't let up. A prime example of this is the car chase, which features the famous Lotus Esprit, widely regarded to be the vehicle most associated with Moore's Bond, in the same vein as the Aston Martin DB5 was with Sean Connery. This car is the perfect vehicle for his era, not just because of its breakneck speed and slick build, but also for being loaded to the brim with gadgets. I never realized how long it'd been since we'd gone with a car without any gadgets, but they sure made up for lost time with this one. It can shoot oil to blind tailgaters, shoot missiles from underwater, and oh yeah, did I mention that it's also a submarine? Seriously, this was the coolest car I'd ever seen when I was a kid. Forget Lamborghinis and Corvettes, for me, this is where it was at. Apparently, the filmmakers had to use multiple models of the car when showing the transformation sequence. One car would withdraw the wheels, another would close the hatches where they were, and another would engage the wing flaps. So much work and effort for a few seconds of film, but the end result is a million times more authentic than anything Hollywood could produce today. As far as I'm concerned, this is 100% Roger Moore's vehicle. But hey, even the Bond girl has to help out a little bit too.
How did you know about that?
I stole the blueprints of this car 2 years ago.
With all this crazy action going on, it's also important to highlight the moments where the film takes a breath to chill out. The cinematography by Claude Renoir is simply amazing. There's a lot of scenes in this film without any dialogue, and many of them show Bond and other characters from long and wide shots interacting with their environment. It's a great way of showing the world around Bond and making it come to life. The desert scenes in the daylight are probably the greatest example in this regard. The vastness and beauty of the Egyptian desert adds to the larger-than-life world that Bond inhabits. There's even a cute nod to Lawrence of Arabia in the soundtrack when Bond and Anya are making their way back to Cairo. And at night, the mood changes from one of splendor to that of terror. The shots of Jaws creeping about the pyramids at night to pursue his victim is still unnerving to watch. The lighting and camera work also complements the set designs by Ken Adam, which once again are phenomenal. The sheer enormity of the supertanker's interior is still a marvel to behold, and funnily enough, it almost never came to be. Adam had trouble finding the appropriate lighting for the set as Renoir's eyesight was deteriorating over the course of filming. To assist with the production, Adam enlisted the help of famed film director Stanley Kubrick, who visited the set in secret to provide advice on how to light the set. It really goes to show how the little things make all the difference, even with a big-budget action flick. Speaking of little things, those are the only things I can really find to complain about, other than Stromberg's plot basically being a recycled version of You Only Live Twice. Most of the things I could complain about are so insignificant they don't need to be brought up at all. But if I were to nitpick just a little bit, there are a few things I can look at, like the obnoxious captain of the American submarine near the film's climax. I'm not sure how he got this high up in the chain of command, but someone really needs to tell him to take a chill pill.
The printout transmission unit. Can you work it?
Well, sure, but James, we've only got 3 minutes.
Oh no, 3 minutes? It's almost like we have just enough time to do our jobs. I also think it's a little cruel how Bond just brushes off Q before he has time to even explain how his new toy car works. I know the two aren't always on the best of terms, but at least show a little banter. Even Anya has time to acknowledge the poor guy, even referring to him by his old name, Boothroyd.
Good morning, Major Boothroyd.
Morning, Major.
Honestly, finding things to complain about just feels wrong to do because there's so many things they get right from the beginning. This is truly Roger Moore's finest film. Everything about it plays to his strengths. The endless witticisms, the romantic saxophone-backed soundtrack, and his womanizing ways all feel whole and complete. They fully complement Moore's portrayal of Bond. I personally feel that he didn't really come into his own with the role at first. It took him a few films to hone his craft, and now he's finally transformed into his own unique take of a 00 agent with a license to kill. And on top of that, he has a female counterpart who resists all of his traits and habits and forces him to work to earn her trust, both as an ally and as a lover. The dichotomy of these two characters is the glue that holds this film together. Had it not been for this, it probably would have been on the same level as the previous two films. It's thanks to an experienced director and a talented team of cast and crew who were able to come together despite everything that plagued the film's production and rally to create the best film they could. Cubby in particular deserves special recognition for the efforts he took to care for his staff. He raised morale for them by giving paid holidays when he could, and even cooked dinner for them when there was a shortage of food.
Being a sort of a cook around the house, and I do a lot of amateur cooking, I decided I would cook up a big spaghetti do for the boys because I knew they all liked that sort of thing.
So Cubby got in a Jeep with one of the crew, and they went searching for pots and pans and pasta and tomatoes.
I had to fly someone into Cairo to get the spaghetti.
Cubby got in the catering wagon with his other caterers there, and he cooked all the mountains and mountains of spaghetti. This is the producer with an apron on, and he's cooking for the whole unit.
And they were so delighted. They all applauded at the end of it.
If you go to Ramesseum now, in the restaurant there, which we took over, there's a sign on the wall which says Trattoria Broccoli.
Even watching this film today, you can feel the love and pride that everyone put into making it. There's just a sense of fun and joy that permeates in every scene on the screen, and that fun transcends to the audience, whether it's during a moment of silence or a loud and brash fight to the death, and all the little things in between. No scene goes to waste. The Spy Who Loved Me is what happens when a film has a vision and a dogged determination to see it through to the end. Cubby stood to risk it all if this film had failed, and the end result is nothing short of sheer brilliance. If you are even the slightest bit interested in James Bond, spy flicks, or action movies in general, you owe it to yourself to watch this film. Even more than 40 years since its original release, its lasting legacy is living proof that nobody does it better than James Bond. This concludes my review of The Spy Who Loved Me. Thank you for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, stay tuned for the next part.
007 Triple X. Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British end up, sir.
Nobody does me better. Makes me feel sad for the rest. Nobody does it half as good as you. Baby, you're the best.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Good night.